If you find yourself in a constant state of stress all semester long, you're going to want to stick around for this episode because we're going to be talking all about how to deal with stress as a busy college student. I'm going to touch upon things like the reason why you're always so darn stressed and how to set yourself up for the semester with a different mindset so that you have as little stress as possible even during finals and midterms. You're watching SheRocks College Live. Hey y'all, it feels so good to be back. You are watching SheRocks College Live. I am your host, Clarissa, and SheRocks College Live is a show that happens every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. It was a show that I created to bring together college women to have conversations about what it's like to be a non-traditional college student. So this show is for the go-getters, it's for the moms, it's for the college student who's working 2, 3, 4 jobs while taking a full college load. It's for the students who want to learn how to get out of their own damn way and step into their brilliance. So if that's you, you're in the right place. So like I said at the beginning of this show, I am going to be talking all about stress. And the reason why I want to talk about this topic is because this is something that too many college students are struggling with. And no one is talking about what is causing the stress. No one is talking to us about how to manage it. Nobody is talking to us about why it is that some students have a lot of the same circumstances that we might have, and they're walking around campus, they're walking into the lecture hall so light and so full of life and like nothing bothers them. And if you're wanting to know what the difference is between you and them, that's what we're going to be talking about on tonight's show. And of course, I start every show with the etiology, the definition of whatever topic it is that I'm talking about, just because it's something that I enjoy and I'm obsessed with. So in order for us to understand, number one, why you're so stressed, we have to understand what stress is. So we have to define it, right? We have to define what stress is so that we can understand what causes it. And then once we understand what causes it, from that space of having that awareness, we can then create a plan, a very simple one, because I'm all about simple and effective strategies that will help you to move through stress more rapidly than you would in the past, or in a way where it doesn't paralyze you, it doesn't freeze you up, it doesn't prevent you from achieving the goals it is that you want for yourself. I am not saying that after this show, I'm going to help you to completely eliminate stress and that you're never going to experience it. What I'm going to help you to do in this show is show you how to walk yourself through a 10 out of 10 in terms of stress down the ladder to like a 2. And if you can get yourself to a 0 out of 10 on the stress scale, then that would be great. So let's dive into the definition of stress. So stress is a mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. So stress is a mental, meaning of your mind, meaning thoughts, or emotional feelings that is caused by a circumstance. Stress is a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. So what this definition is trying to convey is that when we are experiencing stress, what we're really experiencing are a bunch of thoughts that are creating feelings in us because of something that we're experiencing in our outside environment, right, around us. This concept that our thoughts and our emotions dictate our actions and behaviors based off of what we're experiencing in our world is one of the universal principles. It's something that cognitive behavioral therapy really talks about. And if you're not familiar with cognitive behavioral therapy is a psychotherapy that focuses on changing people's perceptions so that they can change the way that they're feeling and thus change their behaviors. Because our thoughts create our emotions, and we act based off of how we feel. And the only thing that produces a result in our life is the actions that we take. And so if you are experiencing stress because you have 7 papers due in a 2-day period, you have 12 exams this week, you also have to work 40 hours because you couldn't get anyone to switch with you this week even though you have 1,000 exams, your mom is sick, you have family issues going on, you can't get someone to babysit your kid and you're going to have to miss class and you're going to have points docked, you didn't get enough time to study for this test and now you're going to fail it. Whatever your circumstance is, what is happening around you is not what is causing the stress. I'm going to repeat that again. What is happening around you, the 7 exams, the lack of a babysitter, the fact that you have to go into work because you couldn't get someone to cover your shift, the fact that your mom might be sick with cancer, those things are not causing your stress. And the way that we know that this is true is because somewhere in the world, there is someone who has similar circumstances, if not the exact same circumstances as you, and is not stress. So what is the difference between you in your perpetual state of stress and that person who's going through the exact same life circumstances as you and is breezing through life as though nothing is wrong? The difference are the thoughts that that person is thinking about their circumstance. What is creating your stress, the true cause of stress, is what you're making your situation mean, the thoughts that you're having about your situation. And so I'm going to right now break this down for you. Again, I'm going to repeat the definition of stress. Stress is a state of mental, meaning of the mind. And what is our mind made up of? Just thoughts. So it's a state of thoughts and emotions that results from a circumstance. But the circumstance itself isn't causing the stress. It's what you're thinking about the circumstance, which is causing an emotion that you define as stress. And because of that, your life feels chaotic, right? It's just because of what you're thinking. It's not the circumstance. And this is like a really confusing topic. It's a very resistant topic, meaning that what I'm explaining right now, you're going to automatically want to reject. And the reason why you're going to automatically want to reject it is because if you believe this, if you believe what I'm talking about tonight, that you're causing the stress based off of what you're thinking about what is happening to you, that means that you have to shoulder all the blame. And we don't want to be at fault as humans. We don't want to blame ourselves. We would prefer to blame the circumstance because then we don't have to take any responsibility. And so when I talk about this topic, a lot of students will get it intellectually, right? They'll see it, they'll say, okay, it makes sense, but they won't want to adopt it as true, because if they adopt it as true, then that means that they have to work on their mindset. And they don't want to have to put in that much effort. But I'm telling you that when you start to look at the world in this way, where you are creating the life that you want based off of what you're thinking, you will realize that that gives you back all of your power. That puts your whole world in your control, which is what a lot of us are trying to do, right? We're trying to control what is happening to us. And we try to control what's happening to us by trying to control the circumstance, the physical world. But if you just realize that the way to do it, the easiest way to do it is by changing your mind, your whole world is going to shift, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and bring out my whiteboard because I'm going to use it to walk you through this process so that you can see it and so that it makes sense to you. So a circumstance is what is. It's just a fact. So for example, a circumstance is you have 7 exams this week. Another example of a circumstance is your mom has cancer. Another example of a circumstance is your professor said you can't get an extension on this paper. Another example of a circumstance is you can't find a babysitter for Friday night. Another example of a circumstance is you got an F on your recent exam. A circumstance is what is. It doesn't have any adjectives attached to it. It's not your opinion. It's just fact. This is what happened. This is what's happening. Not your interpretation of what happened, but what actually happened. What is happening. That's what a circumstance is. And a circumstance is neutral, meaning that nothing is good or bad until you make it good or bad based off of what you're thinking. Again, another topic, but hear me out on this. How do we know that circumstances are neutral? I'm going to give you a really morbid example, and I hope I don't lose anybody, but I have to go extreme in order for you to get this. When the Holocaust happened, the Holocaust itself is a neutral event. Millions of Jews died. Those are the facts. Millions of Jews died. Those are the facts. The reason we know that it is neutral and that the only reason why it is good or bad is because of the meaning or the thoughts that we're thinking about it. How we know that is true is because when the Holocaust happened, there were a certain set of people who thought it was horrific, sad, the most evil thing that somebody can do. And yet, at the same time, during the same event, there was a group of people who thought it was the best thing in the world. That this is exactly what should have happened. Who were rejoicing in that many people dying. What's the difference between those two people, those two groups? The thoughts that they were thinking about all of those Jews dying. The Jews who were a part of it were thinking one thing, and the Germans and the Nazis were thinking something else. They gave all those people dying the meaning that they wanted to give it. Again, your brain is going to want to reject this because you're going to say, Clarissa, how could that be true? How could anyone dying, being murdered, being killed be true? You don't want to accept it because you think that that makes you a bad person. But again, the only reason why you're thinking you're a bad person is because of the thoughts that you're thinking. But circumstances are neutral. It just is what is. It's just the facts. It doesn't become good or bad, stressful or not stressful until you start adding your thoughts, your opinions up to the circumstance. And that brings me to your thoughts. All your thoughts are a sentence about what is. So, you couldn't get a babysitter for Friday night even though you had class. That's the circumstance. Your thought is, this sucks. I hate the fact that I have a kid right now. It makes college so hard. The facts are what they are. No babysitter. There is somebody around the world who doesn't have a babysitter and is totally fine with it. Because their thoughts are, I'm fine. That's okay that I don't have a babysitter. It's okay that I have to miss class. There's another mom out there who is thinking a completely different set of thoughts, like, this freaking sucks. Why does this always happen to me? I could never get anyone to watch my kid. And the moment that they start thinking certain things about the circumstances, it starts changing your energy. It starts changing the emotions that you're feeling. The mom that said, that's okay, is feeling very differently than the mom says, why does this always happen to me? How come nobody wants to help me with my kids? Why doesn't anybody want to help me get ahead here? I'm a single mom. I'm trying to do these things and no one's helping me. The mom who is thinking those thoughts is perpetuating this state of stress. She's creating an emotional state of stress. Which brings me to my second point, feelings. Feelings are emotions that the sentence you're thinking creates. So the moment that you have a thought in your head, that thought starts to produce a whole slew of chemical reactions in your body. Certain thoughts that you have start to produce a stress response in your body, and your body goes into fight and flight mode. Other thoughts start to produce happy emotions in your body, like dopamine and things like that. Emotions are just the chemical processes that are happening in your body based off of what your brain is thinking is happening. And your brain has no sense of reality and make-believe. So whatever you tell your brain with your thoughts, it's going to think is happening. So if you start thinking thoughts that your brain thinks is going to hurt you in some way, it's going to start shooting out chemicals, hormones that produce the fight or flight response, which you then feel in your body as stress. Think about how you feel when you're stressed. The way that you know that you're stressed is because of the way it feels. Some people their throat starts getting really dry and closed up. Their heart starts racing really fast. They feel like they can't breathe. Their stomach gets all in knots, etc. Think about the emotion of happiness and how that feels in your body. You usually feel really light. You start sitting differently, right? All of those chemicals that are producing these emotions are being produced because of what you're thinking and how your brain is interpreting what you're telling it. So it's either going to interpret it as a threat or it's going to interpret it as something that's pleasurable. And it's just based off of the sentences that you're thinking about your circumstance. Now, when you experience an emotion, you are going to take action, okay? And all action is a response to the emotion that you're experiencing, okay? An action is your response to the emotion that you're experiencing, okay? And when we experience emotions, we will typically, depending on, what the emotion is, we will either give in to the emotion and allow it to come through us and process it. Some of us will try to avoid the emotion. Some of us will react to the emotion. An example of somebody reacting to an emotion is when someone gets angry and they punch a wall. That's them reacting to the anger that they're feeling. Or you have certain people who will cut themselves because they don't feel anything and they want to feel something, right? That's the only way that they can feel something because they're not experiencing any emotions. Somebody who wants to avoid an emotion will try to distract their brain from whatever is creating the emotion. And so that's where procrastination comes in. You might be experiencing a negative emotion when you think about your exam, or when you think about reading a textbook, or when you think about working on a certain class, and you don't like the way that emotion feels, and so you try to escape it by distracting yourself, by getting your brain to think about something else so that you can experience a more pleasurable emotion. And then, like I said, some people just experience the emotion. They let themselves be sad. They let themselves be angry. They let themselves experience whatever it is and let it pass through them. And then they're, on with the rest of their lives. The reason why this becomes important, guys, is because your response, what you do, is going to produce a result in your life. A result is what is produced based on your response to the emotion. again, stress isn't about the circumstance. It isn't about the 7 exams. It isn't about the 25-page paper that you don't know how to write. It's your thoughts about the paper. It's your thought about the 7 exams that is creating the emotion of stress. And when you produce a result that then reinforces your original thought that created the stress in the first place, you're then just in a perpetual state of stress all semester long. And you're the student who looks freaking chaotic and all over the place and, appears to everybody else like you don't have your crap together. And you want people to sympathize with you, and you say things like, I'm so stressed, this is so stressful, but it isn't. You're creating the stress, which means that you have the power to minimize it, which means that you have the power to make any circumstances happening to you in the semester be all right, be okay, be something that you can handle. And that's what I'm going to be teaching you now. So, in order for us to move from a constant state of stress into a state of ease, what do we need to focus on? If you understand what I just taught you here, that your thought about what is happening is what's creating the feeling of stress, and you want to create a feeling of ease and simplicity and okayness throughout the semester, what do you have to focus on? The answer or the solution is your thoughts about the circumstances. And it sounds so simple when I say it, and it sounds so easy because it is. It doesn't mean that it's not going to require you to show up every single day. It doesn't mean that you're only going to have to do this once. When something is simple, right? When something is simple, it just means that you understand how to get it done. Simple is not the same thing as easy. Changing your thoughts, which for most of us, our thoughts are habitual. I think there was a study done saying that we think the same 9 thoughts that we thought the day before or something like that. Or like 65% of our thoughts that we're having today were the same thoughts that we had yesterday, which means that we're in the habit of thinking the same thoughts. And so if you're constantly feeling stressed all the time, no matter what is happening around you, that means that you are constantly thinking stressful thoughts. And so if you want to move yourself from a state of constant stress, you need to start thinking less stressful thoughts. You need to start changing your perception around what is happening, which is what the field of cognitive behavioral therapy is all about. I am not a therapist. I am a registered nurse, but I do love neuroscience and I love psychology, which is why I'm familiar with CBT. But in that field, they work with the patients all on changing their perception. Because when you walk around the world with a particular belief system, and all a belief is a set of thoughts that you've adopted as true, as Bible for yourself in your life. When you walk around the world with a certain belief system, it's like walking around with glasses that only sees the world one way. But once you take off the glasses, you become aware of a whole new different way of seeing the world, of thinking about what is happening to you, which opens up a ton of possibility. And the process that I teach students on how to start changing their thoughts inside of study school, which is my signature program, and where I work with college women to help them create study routines and rituals that really fit the lifestyle that they want to have while they're going through college, is like this. You have to detach your emotions from the facts. and you have to bring your thoughts up to your awareness so that you can start identifying the thoughts that are creating your stress and come up with solutions and different thoughts that are less stressful. So the way that you do that is by first asking yourself. So I want you to think of something right now that you feel is super stressful. So I want you to think about maybe you have an exam coming up. Maybe you're 4 weeks behind on reading chapters for a particular class, or maybe you have a presentation coming up and you are super stressed about having to talk in front of everybody in your class. So whatever it is that you believe is causing you stress right now, I want you to write it down. So write down whatever it is. Then what I want you to do is I want you to pick out of that, because for most of you, you created a story. This is what, when I just asked you to do that, this is what most of you did. And correct me if I'm wrong. Most of you went like this. Well, I have 7 exams this week, and my mom is asking me to go to my Uncle John's funeral, and how can I go to his funeral when I have to study for this exam, but I can't not go because then I feel guilty about the fact that I didn't go to my Uncle John's funeral, even though I wasn't that close to him. And now I'm 12 weeks behind on my chapters, all because I missed that one day. But you don't understand. This is what's happening this always happens to me. Every time I get in a flow, every time I have things going going really well for me, a wrench gets thrown in. Some of you created a whole elaborate story to justify your stress. Great, write it down. But then what I want you to do is I want you to take out the facts from that. What is it? What is happening? What is? The facts are I have an exam and I have to go to my Uncle John's funeral. That's it. No adjectives. No opinions, no stories. I have an exam and I have to go to my Uncle John's funeral. Those are the facts. The next thing that I want you to do is I want you to write down what you're making those facts mean. So the fact is, I have an exam and I have to go to my Uncle John's funeral. Some of you might be making it mean, now I'm not going to have enough time to study for my exam. Now I'm going to miss a whole week's of class and I am going to be super behind and I'm not going to be able to catch up and I'm not going to understand the material now, and now I'm not going to do well on my exam. After you write down what you're making the facts mean, I want you to write down what happens, how do you behave when you choose to believe the story that you're making up about the facts. Because we've already established that that is causing you stress. So how do you behave when you're stressed? Once you've written down how you behave, the actions that you take when you're stressed, and some examples might be, I ruminate on the fact that I have to go to my Uncle John's funeral. I lash out at my mom over the fact that she's making me go. I don't do any of the reading. I just give up because now I'm super behind. I decide that I'm not even going to get anything done until after I get back. Whatever it is that you do when you feel stressed, I sleep. I spent the whole week sleeping. Whatever it is, you're going to write it down. Then you're going to ask yourself, if I do these things, what is the result? And for most of you, the result is going to be you failed the exam, the assignment got handed in late, still 5 weeks behind, whatever. Which then, that result, whatever it was, then perpetuates the original thought, the story that you created, which then produces the emotion of stress. So you're constantly in it. Once you can see and become aware of the thought that is creating your current emotional state, your current level of panic, your behaviors, and then your results, you can start to change it. So how do you change it? By taking how you don't want to feel and act, and creating how you do want to feel and act. So you just ask yourself these questions. Is how I'm currently thinking helping me to feel the way that I want to feel? If the answer is no, how do I want to feel? How do I want to feel about the fact that I have an exam and I have to go to my Uncle John's funeral? How do I want to feel about that? And your answer might be, I want to not care. Like I want to feel okay with it. I want to feel okay. What would you have to think about the fact that you have an exam and you have to go to your Uncle John's funeral in order to feel at ease about it, to feel okay with it? That thought is where you want to focus your attention. Where you focus is where your energy and emotions are going to go. And that is going to create the result that you want. And that is what's going to cause you to feel at ease throughout your semester and not be in a constant state of stress. So I might choose to think this thought instead. I have to go to my Uncle John's funeral and study for this exam, and that's okay. You might choose to think, I'll figure out how I can study for this exam and make it to my Uncle John's funeral. You might choose to think, I'm upset that I have to go to my Uncle John's funeral because I have this exam, but that's okay. You might choose to think, I can do both. The thoughts that you think are going to dictate whether or not you feel stressed. And if you are feeling stress, the moral of this episode is that your stress is being caused about what you're making your circumstances mean. It's not your circumstances that are creating the stress. It is your thoughts. And if you can identify what you're thinking, you can change your emotional state from a state of stress to a state of ease. And if you want to learn how to do this more effectively, how to make this a habit, how to make this a part of your life, how to deliberately create the academic experience and the life experience that you want, you definitely want to check out Study School. That is how the college women that I work with learn how to process their situations in this way and learn how to create a magnificent, I love that word, college experience where it fits their lifestyle like a glove, where they don't have these constant state of stress. Instead, they're feeling like they're a lot more in control of what is happening to them, of their emotional state, and they know not only how to study, when to study, but they also understand how to create a life that they enjoy while they're in college. So, thank you so much for joining me on tonight's show. I am going to answer one question. So we're doing something really fun at the end of every show because the whole reason why I started this show is to interact with you girls and to really build a community where we are having a conversation, where you're not just watching a pre-recorded video and you don't feel like you can ask questions. And so if you are a part of the SheRocks at College Secret Study Society, which is the Facebook group community for the SheRocks at College company. Every Wednesday, we're putting a post inside of that group where you can ask your question, and I will pull one question, 1 to 2 questions every week and answer it in full detail. And this week, I'm having trouble pulling it up. The question comes from Jasmine Wu. I just want to get it up on my phone here. She asked, how do you manage your time on weekends where you don't have classes and don't have to wake up early, but you still want to be productive and get work done? And at the same time, you still want to make time for fun and relaxing on weekends. So, a lot of students think that they struggle with managing their time, and I always call BS on that. If you know how to look at a calendar and plug activities on a specific date and time, then you know how to manage your time. What most students are struggling with is getting themselves to stick to the schedule that they create for themselves. And when they don't stick to the schedule that they create for themselves, they don't get the result that they want. And their initial reaction is, well, I didn't manage my time well. You did, right? Managing your time just means that you know when and where you're going to do something. What you're really struggling with is getting yourself to stick to it, getting yourself to do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. And the reason why you're struggling with it is because you're not aware of the thoughts that are creating the emotion that you're trying to avoid. So something on your schedule is causing you to feel a negative emotion that you're trying to escape from by not doing it. And so you do something else. So the first thing that I will say to you, Jasmine, is figure out what it is about what's on your schedule that makes you not want to do it. How are you feeling when you're looking at the stuff that's on your schedule? And what are the thoughts that you're thinking about what it is that you need to do on your schedule? So that's the first piece of advice that I'll give you. And again, it goes beautifully with what we talked about today, because your thoughts create emotions, your emotions create your actions, and your actions are going to produce the results. So if you're not doing something, you have to figure out why you're not doing it. And it's because you're probably trying to avoid an emotion that's being caused by something that you're thinking about what it is that you have to do. So that's the first little piece of advice that I'll give you. And Jasmine, I know that you're inside of study school, so this is something that you want to plop into the community, or that you want to show up to study hall hours and we can dive in a little bit deeper. I can ask you some questions and really draw out of you what those thoughts might be and help you to start changing your mindset around it. The second piece of advice that I want to give to you is this. Why is it that the weekend is somehow different than the weekday? Saturday and Sunday is the same as Monday through Friday. It's just another day with the same 24 hours. The only reason why you're treating it differently is because you are thinking that it's differently. But if you just chose to think Saturday, Sunday is just another day, then you'd know how to manage your time, right? Because if you can do it from Monday through Friday, then you can do it for Saturday and Sunday, because it's just another day. There really is no difference. The only reason why we treat Saturday and Sunday differently is because we think that it's different, right? There's a different mindset about the weekend, but the only reason why there's a different mindset about the weekend is because we're choosing to think about it. Me as a nurse, I don't think of the weekends any differently because I still work on the weekend. It's just another day. I don't think of the holidays as anything different because I'm usually working the holidays. It's just another day. So if you chose to think that Saturday and Sunday is just another day, it's no different than Monday through Friday, how would you manage your time? And I bet that if you ask yourself that question, you will figure it out, and you don't even need me to help you with that. So again, come on over and join us in the Secret Study Society if you want to get some extra support. At the end of this show, we're also going to be doing a lot of different fun activities in there. There are going to be a lot of group coaching opportunities. If you have burning questions about how to make your college experience enjoyable, that's the place where you want to go. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining me on tonight's show, and I hope that you all have an amazing, amazing rest of your week. Bye.